John, g'day. There have been plenty of books written about Donald Trump and plenty of astounding allegations about what he's said and done. Does this take all that much further?
It does, for a number of important reasons. You recall back at the time of the impeachment inquiry last year into the president's dealings with Ukraine, where he was accused of inappropriately pressuring Ukraine to dig for dirt on his political rivals Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton, and he was withholding military aid from Ukraine at that time. Well, importantly, John Bolton, who was National Security Advisor at the time, has confirmed that President Trump spoke to him overtly about a quid pro quo, essentially confirming the thesis of the impeachment that was conducted in the House of Representatives, even though Trump was acquitted in January of this year. So,
would that have made any difference to senators who are voting on this in the end anyway?
The reason that is important, Joe, is because the House had requested John Bolton to appear before, among all those witnesses that were appearing. They wanted John Bolton to appear. He refused to appear voluntarily, and he said he would fight in court a subpoena to compel him to appear. He also indicated, but if the Senate, the Republican Senate, wants to subpoena me, then maybe I would turn up. Well, the Republican Senate didn't take any evidence at all, including John Bolton. So John Bolton having here what is not necessarily a smoking gun about Ukraine, but is certainly further corroboration, essentially proving the allegations made that Donald Trump subverted the national interest for his own political interest, that is significant. And now we learn from John Bolton's book, which is still yet to be published, but these extracts that have appeared in the Wall Street Journal, he was essentially doing the same thing with China. And this is something John Bolton has let slip in the last few days as well, saying, really, the Democrats shouldn't have just stopped at Ukraine because Trump was doing this with a whole lot of foreign countries, including China, where he said to President Xi on the sidelines of the G7 last year, I need you to help me win re-election in 2020 by buying lots of soybeans from farmers such as the Iowa farmers who are hardest hit by the retaliatory tariffs from China. China was aware of the political impact of their tariffs on Trump. They targeted Trump with their tariffs to make it hurt politically, and Trump essentially made himself beholden to them, saying, help me out here and I'll win re-election because I'll be better for you.
But isn't Trump in that situation just boldly outlining a motive behind something where another president might be doing the same thing without saying that it is to help my re-election?
Precisely. Donald Trump often says out loud the thing that most traditional presidents or politicians would never say out loud. So, on the one hand, he is we know, more than 15,000 false and misleading statements according to fact checkers. He is an untruthful person in public, but he is also incredibly honest and upfront. He blurts things out. The reason it alarmed John Bolton, though, Joe, is because by saying overtly to China, China knew that they were putting pressure on Trump in states like Michigan by putting tariffs on motorcycles. The Harley-Davidson factory was costing Trump votes. They were targeting his political pressure points. That was understood. Trump, by then saying, I need you to help me out by doing this, in return, you'll get a better deal from me than you will from other politicians, the inference being Democrats. Well, there's a suggestion of a quid pro quo there, but most importantly, in a diplomatic context, you're handing the other side, in this case China's president, a huge weapon to wield over you. It is diplomatically stupid. It is not just that he was upfront about something that they knew the game they were playing. He was handing China massive leverage over him at a time when they're in the middle of a trade war that he instigated and was losing and continues to lose, but he wanted to get a trade deal with China, the same trade deal that had him going soft on China's response to the coronavirus early this year because he wanted to get that deal.
In a situation with another president who might not be as blunt and honest about why he was doing things, wouldn't China have that leverage over a different president anyway because they would know what that president is after anyway? It's just the fact that Donald Trump said this?
It would certainly be a point of leverage, and it would be the elephant in the room. But by President Trump saying to China, this is what I need you to do for me to win re-election, he was making himself a puppet of China in the way that his detractors have accused him of being the puppet of Putin in the past. It was at best a very naive, very stupid thing to do diplomatically, to put himself in that position. As for the question of President Trump's honesty, the other tidbits coming out of this Bolton book include the fact that John Bolton describes Donald Trump as a, quote, liar. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo describes Trump as, quote, full of shit. So this we're getting this picture from his intimates, his former inner circle, people like John Bolton and James Mattis and John Kelly and others, that Donald Trump cannot be believed.
Yeah, which further confirms what we've heard from so many other people before. So will this effectively change anything?
We'll wait and see what else is to come out in this book, if indeed it is published next week. The Department of Justice has sought an emergency injunction to stop its publication.
So you've only seen extracts?
There are only extracts available at this stage. There is a lot of anger on the left at the fact that Bolton is profiting from this information after refusing to give it to senators and Congress members when the president was being impeached for this behaviour.
$2 million deal on the book or something.
It's a lot of money. So, but John Bolton is, even though he is seen as being a lot more hawkish than Donald Trump, he is seen as being a reasonably credible Republican sort of insider, and this does potentially see the start of a momentum towards Republicans who have long been holding their nose at Donald Trump, making a public break with him this year ahead of the election, particularly if they think that Joe Biden is more likely to win this November's election and it's time to be rid of Donald Trump.
But there are plenty of other Republicans who turned their back on Donald Trump before the last election too.
That's right. Yeah. And the question is really, what do voters make of all of this? In a political sense, what this does do is blunt Donald Trump's, one of his major attacks on Joe Biden has been that Joe Biden is too close to China. Well, this book shows Donald Trump not only said to China, I need your help for this election. Oh, and by the way, yeah, I'm not going to criticise you for building concentration camps and putting 1 million Uyghurs in there. In fact, according to the Bolton book, Donald Trump said, build more concentration camps. Now, if that's not soft on China, then I don't know what is. So that is also something that has essentially robbed Donald Trump of an attack line against Joe Biden that wasn't really resonating anyway, but it does undermine that message.
And John, just before we let you go on another subject, the coronavirus death toll in the US has been horrific. To what extent will Donald Trump's handling of the coronavirus pandemic affect his chances at the next election?
It's certainly seen his approval ratings fall from the mid-40s to the low 40s. What's interesting now, though, Joe, is the pandemic was particularly aggressive in its early stages in heavily Democratic areas like New York City. Right now, in what is not so much the second wave as just the continuation of the first wave, it is now moving through Republican Trump-supporting states and also crucial swing states. So we're seeing an uptick in places like Florida, Texas, Arizona as well, Oklahoma, where he's holding a rally this weekend. So unfortunately, Donald Trump's base is, through being older and lower middle class in many cases, without good health insurance, they're vulnerable to the effects of this. And we're seeing a spike in cases in 20 states. Many of them are now Trump states. So we could see a shift in public perception as to just how dangerous the pandemic is, because for many months, Americans in those states were saying, this is a New York problem, we shouldn't be shutting down Florida because this is a New York problem. And now we're now looking at a debate over whether people should be wearing masks instead of a second shutdown. And President Trump has already highly politicised the issue of wearing masks by refusing to wear one. Joe Biden very noticeably does wear one whenever he's in public. Now Americans have to decide, and unfortunately they're not making a decision just about their own health or the health of their fellow citizens, but they're also making a political statement in an election year in a highly partisan environment, which is quite a dangerous place when it means that lives are being put at risk.
OK, John Barron, cheers. And when can people next see Planet America?
Planet America Wednesday nights on ABC TV and the Fireside Chat on Friday nights on ABC News.
Cheers, John.
Thanks, Joe.